Welcome to Forensic Science Sunday, where I tell you one true crime case that was solved using forensic science, all while doing, that's right, my makeup. Today's video will be featuring the Alien Cosmetics, now known as Unearthly Cosmetics, Not Normal palette. I have used this palette before, but I promised you guys that I was going to do a second look with it. So I am back to do that for you guys, and I'm super excited. All the other items I'm using in this video will be linked in the description below. Please read the disclaimer. I am not a professional makeup artist, nor am I a professional forensic pathologist. I'm just the average girl at home like you, playing in my makeup. Sometimes I do my nails while I talk about a true crime case. So if that's something you're into, then you're more than welcome to hit that subscribe button. I'm spitting all over the place. A quick reminder, the comment section is a privilege. Don't fuck it up. Now let's get into today's case. Thanks. I need some heavy duty shit today because, okay. This all takes place in St. Louis, Louisiana in 1986. A middle-aged couple, Ed and Julia Post, were on a trip. They were actually on a business trip to a real estate convention. Now, Ed and Julia Post, they met in college at the University of Southern Mississippi, where they instantly hit it off, they fell in love, and they got married in 1967. We have a cat. She has arrived. Hello, Detective Inspector. Listen, I can't hold you, babes. I gotta do the video. They're waiting, babes. Look, they're waiting. I can't hold you. They're waiting. Now, Ed, he was a real estate agent, but he wasn't doing very well in business where they were. So they decided to move to Louisiana, where Ed was able to make a name for himself and he became quite popular. Ed was just the average guy. He was 5'7", I believe, and he was a little bit of a pudgy type of guy, but he did have a really big personality. A lot of people described him as sophisticated, cheerful, relentless, very business oriented, a people person, and he was always able to like get clients. Ed was the type of guy where he really did do his research. If he was trying to sell something, he would learn about different cultures and invest his time in really trying to appear sophisticated. Ed was doing so well in the company that in 1982, Julia joined Wagner and Strauss alongside Ed. So she was actually working for her husband Ed at his company. Now Ed, he only had about a 10% ownership of this company, so he wasn't completely in control of his company. I also like to mention that while I was doing some research, I did find another article that said the company's name actually was not Wagner and Strauss, but it was Gertrude Garden Realtors, I believe. So I'm not sure which one it is. While Julia worked at this company, it is said that she averaged about $1 million in sales of real estate per year, but her annual income was only $20,000. So I don't know how that works. I read somewhere that there is an additional commission. I believe it's at 6% commission that an agent is supposed to make from each sale of the home, but I'm not sure. Like I said, I am not a real estate agent, so don't quote me on that. It appeared like Julia wasn't getting that percentage. She was only making the annual $20,000 a year. But anyway, with that even being said, it was in the 1980s, so this was still a significant amount of money, you know what I mean? It wasn't like she was destitute or anything. Now, together, the couple made a lot of money. I mean, they weren't like super duper rich, but they were pretty well off. They had a $30,000 wine collection that they were able to afford. Bill and Julia, Bill? Who the fuck is Bill? Sorry. Ed and Julia, I know some of you said in the comments that I make too many mistakes. Girl, get over it. Actually, I don't. Okay, I make the same amount of mistakes that everybody else makes. And you know what? I just show it and they don't. So, On the early morning of June 3rd, 1986, Ed woke up before Julia and decided to go out for a run. So Ed did a little sightseeing. He ran around all of the popular locations in St. Louis. And by the way, I would think it was St. Louis, Missouri. He returned to the hotel around 7:40 a.m. Upon entering their hotel room, he found his wife was no longer in bed, which was pretty normal because he had drawn a bath for her before he left. He went into the bathroom, and that is when he found Julia's lifeless body laying face down in the tub full of water. And in a panic, he pulled Julia from the tub, laid her on her back, and started to give her chest compressions. He also called 911. Now, this all happened around 7:43, and so it was like a 3-minute time window in between him arriving to the hotel, getting up to his room, and discovering her. It appeared as though she had fallen accidentally into the tub because the towel ring had been broken off the wall and fell into the tub. In a complete state of panic, Ed pulled Julie from the tub and laid her on her back and started to do chest compressions. When the paramedics arrived, they tried to revive Julie. When they were unsuccessful, they took her to the hospital. And upon arriving to the hospital, she was pronounced dead on the spot. And the medical examiner ruled her death as a drowning, and it was unclear whether or not it was an accident or foul play or what had happened at that time. While all this chaos was going on, Ed Post decides to contact his brother, who I guess is like some sort of lawyer or something, and he came down there and they took pictures of the bathroom and the entire hotel room. And his brother was making some bizarre comments about suing the manufacturer of the towel ring, or suing the hotel for negligence or something like that. And I don't know, he was just making some pretty off the wall statements up front, like right off the bat, talking about, we're gonna sue you for $465 million. Watch, we're gonna sue them, you know. And they were planning on suing the hotel for negligence. Ed was really upset, and understandably so. A loved one of his has died, and he was just convinced that if it wasn't for the messed up towel ring, that Julie would still be alive, that she wouldn't have died. A toxicology report was done on Julie at the autopsy, but they didn't find any drugs or alcohol in her system. There was also no wounds or ligature marks or anything that would have been there if she had been struck in the head with something. Although Julie's death was ruled to be a drowning, the forensic pathologist wasn't really sure if it was an accidental drowning or if there was foul play. He certainly says that he was not convinced that it was an accident, but at the same time, he didn't have any solid evidence, any forensic evidence that there was any foul play involved. On Julie's death certificate, they had to list her manner of death as undetermined. News spread quickly about Julie's death. The local newspaper had also written an article about it, and a lot of people thought that her death was very suspicious. In fact, one of the prosecutors in the district's attorney's office saw the article and thought, something's not right about this. This is really odd. Now, her husband, he was a detective in the St. Louis Police Department. This prosecutor and her detective husband took a look at the newspaper article together, and they read the story and they looked over the case, and they say that they both looked at each other and was like, something's not right here. The Omni Hotel where Ed and Julie was staying also found it really hard to believe that Julie had fallen and ripped the shower ring off the wall, because Julie was only about 100 and something pounds, or maybe even less than 100 and something pounds. And that shower ring, they said, was built to withstand twice the amount of her weight, and she was pretty tiny. To find out if the hotel was negligent and the ring was faulty, investigators hired a forensic reconstructionist. This type of investigator usually comes in and they reconstruct the scene of what they think might have happened, and they test out a bunch of different ways that Julie may have fallen. So what they did was they hired a female investigator that was around the same height and weight as Julie. She's basically an investigative actor. Is that such a thing? Because I would love that job. I would love it. They used a hotel room in the same building that was identical to the room that Ed and Julie had been staying in at the time. The first thing that they had the investigator do is for her to reenact the slip and fall theory, that Julie had slipped and grabbed the rack. She tried that and the towel ring did not budge. It literally didn't move at all. And so they had her try a different way to see if the ring would come off the wall, and there was just literally no way. The ring was solid. Then they had the investigator take both hands and with all her might try and remove the towel ring from the wall. She was able to remove the ring after some time, but it was pretty difficult. She had to rock back and forth and kind of shake it off. After this, they had one of their male detectives, weighing twice the amount of Julie, go into another one of the hotel rooms. They're just tearing this damn hotel apart. I feel bad for these hotel owners. But they went into another hotel room that was identical to the room that Julie and Ed was staying in, and he then tried to remove the towel ring from the wall. He says that he pulled and pulled on it with all his might, and he was unable to move that ring. Like, it wasn't budging. I'm sure you could argue that one room's towel holder could be faulty and the other room's towel holder may not be faulty. I'd say it's a lot less likely that that ring was faulty. The hotel owners was like, this don't make any sense now. We know that we got these rings from a manufacturer that says that these rings are made to withhold twice the amount of weight that you guys are saying Julie is. So they were kind of not believing it either. Investigators began to grow suspicious about Ed, and they started to look into the couple's background. And this is very common in cases like these, where the significant other is, you guys already know, oftentimes the initial primary suspect in murders like this. So of course Ed became their prime suspect in the case, and they wanted to find out if Ed had any ill will or would have wanted to harm Lisa in any way for whatever reason. Now, Ed initially said that he and Lisa had a really good relationship, that they were like not the perfect couple, but they were kind of like a power couple. They made a lot of money together and they had a really good thing going. But with further investigation, police were able to find out that Ed actually had this major crush on one of his co-workers. And I would say it wasn't even a major crush. It was borderline obsessive about this particular co-worker. This woman's name was Kim Motan. And Kim was actually already married, and her husband was a pretty well-off, successful guy himself. So Kim was good where she was at, honey. She wasn't trying to make no crazy moves. She was pretty content where she was. But Ed, he just was so infatuated with Kim. Also, they found out that Kim and Ed had not had the best of relationships like Ed had told them. He and Kim would oftentimes get into arguments, even sometimes in the office, and other people would see it. It was very well known. People knew that they were not really getting along. Police began to theorize that perhaps Ed's motive was that he wanted to be with Kim, and Kim was with this other guy who made more money than him, and so he needed to take his wife out of the picture perhaps so that he could be with Kim. And with further investigation, police discovered that 30 days before Lisa's death, Ed took out an additional $500,000 on her life insurance policy. That is right, you guys. Another life insurance policy case. It's freaking ridiculous. Oh my God, what is my brows doing? My brows want to fight me today, like legit. They trying to fight. Trying to fight, girl. Oh my goodness. I always go through this with them. You guys know my relationship with my brows. If you've been here from day one, then you've seen how these MFers try to treat me. We gonna fix them today though. They not gonna get away. Police also thought this was especially suspicious because Julie only made $20,000 a year. Why would a person that only makes $20,000 a year take out an insurance policy that large, a life insurance policy that large? When they saw that, they knew something was up and they had something here that they needed to keep a closer eye on Ed. Upon talking with Kim, investigators found out that Ed had made an unusual request to Kim at his wife's funeral. Now, Kim, she had a twin sister. I have a twin. Hi, Twinnie, if you're watching. She doesn't watch this stuff, I don't think, but... So, Kim had a twin sister, and I mean, since Kim was taken, she was already married and happily married with her husband and wasn't really giving Ed the time of day. Ed, at the time of the funeral, Ed told Kim, maybe after all of this is over, you can set me up with your sister. I'm sorry, what, sir? Trash. You are trash. Wow. After all, at your wife's funeral, after all this is over, you're at your wife's funeral. This guy is an absolute fuckwad. I'm sorry, but he is. I don't even know the proper terminology to describe this man. Like, absolutely not. You ain't got no shame. Police also became very suspicious about the way that Ed was, you know, kept telling them the story. He told the story the same exact way every single time. He never made any mistakes, never added any new information, and police just thought it was odd because usually when in a situation like that, over time you will remember more details. So maybe initially in your first statement it would be like one way, but then later on when you get interviewed you would, you know, most likely remember more information, and the story should change slightly because you will be adding more, like, I don't know, more information to the story. But his story never changed. He had the same exact story from day one. I mean, it was like copy and paste, and police just thought this was really suspicious. Seemed like homeboy was back there rehearsing his script before he got in front of the police. So police did speak with some of the employees at the hotel, and some of the employees at the hotel told police that they did see Ed acting suspiciously, or what they thought was suspicious. One of the employees at the hotel, a young woman, she said that he just made a point to say, hi, you know, my name is Ed from this room. You made this suggestion and I just wanted to say, you know, thank you. My wife really liked it and, you know, it was a great suggestion. He was just making a point to introduce himself and for like no reason. And also the doorman said that when Ed was leaving, he did stop to talk with him and he introduced himself, you know, hi, I'm Ed, whatever, what was his last name? Post. Sorry, it was Post. Hi, I'm Ed Post and I'm from room whatever number they were in, and that he was going on a walk and for the, you know, the doorman to look out for him. And he was like, oh, okay. I mean, the doorman thought it was rather odd because who would introduce themselves first and last name and give their room number just to say, I'm going out on a run. and I should be back around this time and look out for me. Like, okay, like, sorry, I'm just working the front door. Now, although Ed's behavior was suspicious, investigators didn't have any real solid evidence that Ed had anything to do with Julie's death. Now it's time to go into the palette. But anyway, back to the story. So of course they had to go back to the forensic evidence and see if they could find more. Prosecutors were growing more and more suspicious about Julie's death, and they needed to find out if there was any foul play involved in her death. Because the first autopsy report came back as having no signs of evidence for foul play, they had to re-exhume Julie's body and do a second autopsy report. They had to exhume the body from a cemetery that was right outside New Orleans. In New Orleans, the water tables get really high there, so a lot of people are buried above ground rather than below ground, because obviously if you put the bodies in below ground, in the ground, the water will destroy your loved one's remains. However, Julie's body had been buried below ground. So investigators were not too confident that they were going to be able to get what they were looking for. They were thinking, oh my God, the body could possibly be completely destroyed from water damage. Upon opening the casket, they did find the casket completely flooded and filled with water. Although the casket was filled with water from the foot up to the neck, Julie's head had not been covered in water, so it was not damaged and completely preserved. It was positioned in a way where the head was outside of the water. The forensic medical examiner noticed some bruising and some wounds in her second autopsy report that they hadn't noticed in the first one. The defense, as attorneys, argued that the bruising could have come from the initial autopsy when they removed Julie's organs, because she was an organ donor. And I mean, they were kind of right. There was some of the bruising had come from them removing some of the bones and organs for donation out of, you know, Julie's body. However, there was two additional bruisings that were not caused from the removal of her organs. And these two bruisings was on the back of her neck, like underneath her head, and one on her shoulder, like on the back of her shoulder. The bruising actually looked like palm prints. This would be consistent with someone drowning someone else, holding them down by their neck in the tub. So then forensic investigators went back to look at that towel ring that was found in the tub next to Julie's body, because, you know, they wanted to get all of the evidence that they possibly could. So the ring was attached to metal studs that were placed in the wall, and they had like 2.5 inch, I believe they said it was 2.5 inch screws. Now, according to the manufacturers, these rings were designed to hold up hundreds of pounds of weight and force. Then investigators sent over an identical wall mount and towel ring to a professor of mechanical engineering over at the University of Nebraska. This mechanical engineer found that it took over 450 to 500 pounds of force to remove the wall mount and the ring from the wall. On the original towel ring, there was some damage found to it. I believe on the left side of the base of the towel ring, it had a little dent, and then on the ring itself, on the right side of the ring itself, it had a little scratch or dent in it. So there was no way that these markings could have occurred from her falling and pulling down on it. It had to be from someone pulling from the side, pulling the ring to the side of it. So he was basically trying to figure out a way to reproduce the same damages that they found on the original ring to the ring that he had. He was using a machine that was pulling this ring from all different angles at different levels of, you know, strength, basically with no avail until the 24th time. They came to the conclusion that the towel ring was removed from the outside of the tub, not the inside of the tub like, it originally looked like. This would be inconsistent with the theory that Julie had grabbed it on her way down from her fall. If she had fallen, which we all know at this point, she didn't even fall. All of the evidence that they had pointed to somebody else on the outside of the tub grabbing the ring and pulling it from the side, possibly propping their foot on the side of the tub and using all of their force to remove it. Finally, prosecutors had the scientific proof they needed that Julie did not die by accident. Prosecutors theorized that the motive for Ed to kill his wife, Julie, was the fact that, one, he wanted to be with another woman that he was infatuated with, and two, was that he needed to have enough money, obviously, for this woman because her husband was making more money than him. Now, because business was not doing too good around that time, and we know that Ed was, in fact, had 10% ownership of this real estate company, that meant that he also was responsible for 10% of its losses, which in this time would have been quite a bit of money. And based on Ed and Julie's friends and family members, they say that the couple's relationship was not good at all. They said that the couple would fight constantly and oftentimes it would get physical. Not okay, dude. Not okay. Prosecutors believe that Ed started his plan a month before Julie's death, so he was already planning it a while back. So definitely these lashes came from the same pack, but they look completely different on. So I don't know what happened there, but at least you guys get to see two different styles of eyelashes with this look, I guess. Now, prosecutors believe that on June 3rd, 1986, before going out for his run, that Ed actually drowned his wife in the bathtub that morning. He then proceeded to go on his run. They believe he spoke with the concierge and a doorman in order to give himself an alibi. They believe that after he drowned his wife in the tub, that he pulled the shower ring from the wall, not just so that he could, get the money from his wife's death insurance, or life insurance, I should say, but also so that he could get money from the hotel. Ultimately, his demise came down to, besides him killing his wife, came down to him being greedy enough to pull the ring off the wall. He couldn't just take his wife's life insurance. He also had to get extra money on top of that. 3 years after his wife Julie's death, Ed Post went on trial for her murder. He also took the stand in his own defense, and according to, the prosecutor, they said that he came off as very well educated. Now, even though he was from New Orleans, he went as far as to not speak with his New Orleans accent because he didn't want to sound uneducated, so he spoke very clearly. And in New Orleans, everybody else has an accent, so this to them was not something they were used to hearing. He was speaking very clearly, very articulate. He appeared very educated, well-mannered, well-dressed, and this is why people liked him from the beginning. I mean, he's a salesman, you guys, of course. I'll give this guy one thing. He definitely knows how to sell himself. It did not go over as well, I think, as he had planned, because a few of the jurors thought that he came off a little bit condescending, and they did not like that at all. However smart Ed thought he was, it was no match for the forensic evidence that the scientists brought to trial. And it took the jury less than a day to come to a verdict. Thanks to forensic science and some good police work, Ed Post was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Now, you guys are not going to like this next part, but Ed Post and his attorneys appealed the conviction. I know. And he took a plea deal and pled guilty to second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison with the possibility of parole. And in 2014, at the age of 69, Ed Post was released. Since then, Ed Post has kept a pretty low profile while integrating into society again, and he declined any requests to speak to the media regarding Julia's murder and this whole case. So yeah, this dude is out roaming the streets still. So great, that's great. What did you guys think about this case and my makeup look? Please let me know in the comments down below. If you like videos like these, you can check out my last video. I'll leave it linked on the screen right here or right here. Like, comment, subscribe, and share. Please share because it really helps me out. And I'll see you guys next week with another Forensic Friday, Saturday, or Sunday episode. Bye.